Against my better judgment, I went out and spent more of my hard-earned cash on another Warhammer starter set for you lovely people. Instead of giving my money directly to Warhammer, I went to friendly Edinburgh-based board game and hobby shop Ancient Robot, and I picked this box up for a good bit less than RRP. Last time I filmed myself tackling a starter set, the brush was atrocious, but we got a pretty good result all things considered. This time, things are different. I took a different approach to the paint job, and some things were better, while some things were way worse. Let's get into it. First up, this is the Warhammer 40k Introductory Set. It's £42.50 in the UK, direct from Gamez Workshop, but if you're a tight Scotsman like me, you'll want to check your friendly local gaming store for boxes, since I got mine for £38.99. That is a whopping £3.51 discount, which will get you a tiny tub of paint, and boy, do you need it with this set. That's our first glaring issue, actually. When it comes to the painting side of things, this box has less colours than a cave mural, and the Wraithbone looks like it's been sitting for about 40,000 years, so you'll see how nice and nightmarish that makes it to work with as we continue. Alongside the Wraithbone, which is a cream colour, we have a blue, a black, a purple, and a gold. Well, a bronze. However, big news folks, this starter brush is actually slightly better. I'm loath to say good, but it looks like there's actually a belly and a tip on the brush, so I'm feeling positive going into this one. You also get clippers in this box, which is fun. They're not going to slice through your sprues like a hot chainsaw through a Tyranid limb, but they might just crack through the plastic like a lumberjack's first day on the job. As I was building the first Marine, three things entered my head. 1. This hard bastard's taken his helmet off. That means painting flesh and eyes. 2. I could probably use these nippers to scrape off some mould lines. And 3. Why is it that orcs always have Cockney accents?
This is gonna be too easy.
I set about giving the first Marine a coat of black. The guide in the box suggests blue as the first coat, but fuck that. Black will give us more contrast. Cracked out the Wraithbone and I started the head, and very quickly realised it would be worth trying to sort of mock zenithal approach, where I kind of painted the upwards facing armour panels in this colour too. We'd be covering them in blue after all, and it would help the lighter areas pop. While I had both black and cream out, I also figured I'd do the grey bits on the arm and leg joints, and then I got a bit panicked and I ended up realising I wouldn't be able to highlight any of the face flesh, so I sort of mixed a horrible dark wash and I threw it all over the face, in the hopes that it might give me room to highlight it for some more volumes. I figured I'd leave that to dry while I mix some blue and black for a dark blue and slap that round the armour where I hadn't added the cream, and following that I ended up adding the blue to the rest of the armour. while we watch me paint some of this, I'm going to read to you the introduction from the booklet that you get in this box, in the style of a Space Marine.
War rages across 1,000,000 worlds. Humanity stands alone in a vast and uncaring universe, faced by horrors on every side. Every day hope grows more distant. There is no peace, only a battle for dominance and survival. Mankind itself stands on the precipice of annihilation. It is the 41st millennium. For 10,000 years, the Imperium has fought to dominate the galaxy, using armies that range from the armored columns of the Astra Militarum to the genetic super soldiers of the Space Marines. But the Imperium is crumbling from within and without. Ancient alien empires seek to reclaim their lost glory as bold contenders try to upend the old order. Meanwhile, the servants of chaos spread corruption and spark planet-spanning civil wars. Amid the carnage, the very fabric of reality is torn and living nightmares burst forth to commit new atrocities. To live in such times is to experience warfare on a scale never before seen by mortal eyes. Starfaring battleships the size of cities duel with tentacled leviathans in the heavens as below. The very ground shakes as armies of millions clash. There is no peace among the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
I started then to build up some of the highlights on the flesh, all the while cursing how difficult it is to paint flesh with a single colour, and realising that had I left it black, I probably could have been more dramatic with my highlighting on the face. But still, we live and learn. I gave the blue another tidy up just to get the coat a bit more consistent, but my feeling is that the black and underpainting approach has given them a much nicer finish than just bashing on 3 coats of blue as per the booklet. Now this is where things take a new turn. I decided on the fly that I'd attempt some sort of scratchy solution to building the light volumes, since this brush was still feeling a bit better than last time. So I mixed blue and a bit of the cream to lighten it a bit, and proceeded to put a sort of random scratchy texture on the upward facing areas. In my mind, this was going to turn out incredible, but in practice, it maybe didn't turn out so well as an effect. I'll let you decide. Not content with ruining the paint job just a little bit, I did the same again with a lighter mix to build the volumes further. Any sane person might have just stuck with a flat blue, but here we are. While I contemplated my mistakes, I slapped on some gold or bronze or whatever we're calling this metallic colour. Then I watered down some black by quite a bit and decided to try a sort of black recess wash on the gold. For the most part it worked, but the bits on the feet and lower areas I tried this with didn't quite work so well, so I ended up using blue to tidy them up a bit later. With another mix of black and cream, I tried to highlight most of the black areas and things like the leather pouches and knife sheath. And realising there was a purity seal on the gun, I also did the parchment on that with the cream too. A slightly lighter mix for some finishing bits on the previously grey areas, and then I decided I'd get fancy and do some writing on the parchment. And the hook on the synthetic brush made this a bit tougher, but it didn't turn out the worst effort really. So ultimately, we have another marine. The paint job is certainly different to the previous starter set effort, and I want to tell you it's horrible, but I also want to mention that if you're just starting out, then you're probably thinking, oh, that doesn't look too bad. And that is okay. I've been painting for years now, so I feel like my experience should yield better results. And in my mind, I'm always going to smash these out of the park, so when it doesn't happen, I often feel like it's a bit disappointing. But all of that is a learning experience. I tried a different approach with this one, and I still found areas where I could definitely improve on things. So after painting the first marine, I wanted to do something similar to last time and show you the difference between the brush you get and the brush you could buy. But last time, when I moved on to a better brush for comparison's sake, I quite rightly got my arse handed to me for picking a 30 quid Winsor & Newton Series 7 brush. Not very beginner friendly. Fair fucks. This time though, I've got you beaten. I bought this pure Kolinksy Sable brush for £3.60 from Hawk Miniatures. Yes, you heard that right, less than 4 quid, so suck it people, it's possible to get a cracking brush for fucking peanuts. Let's see how well it holds up. Side note, if you're not in the UK, there will be companies doing affordable natural hair brushes out there, and if you know of any, let me know on Discord or in the comments and I'll link them up. In addition to the brush, I thought instead of struggle through another paint mixing fever dream, I'd consider what additional paints you might want to add to this set. And I also took the liberty of priming the Mini so that you can see the difference in finish prior to slapping the paint on. My first choice was red, since that would allow me to do lenses in Purity Seal rosettes. A brown would mean leather pouches, a silver would help with gun parts, Nuln Oil or a black wash would work nicely with silver, and some recesses. Agrax Earthshade or a brown wash would sort out the leather pouches being too flat, as well as wash the gold or bronze, and then a proper white so that there wasn't a cream tint on all my grey stuff. Those paints and the primer, if bought from Warhammer in the UK, would set you back an additional £33.50, but I priced up the same stuff from Element and it came to £28. But if you bought the Warhammer paints and tool set for £25, you'd get more paints, plus clippers, and really you'd just need a spray primer can and a brush. So I honestly think it's possible to do this without breaking the bank. You can see I've got an AK Interactive red and a brown from the Too Thin Coats range. Point here is, it's not important who makes the paint really, provided you're happy with the colours that you've got. After a spray primer, you can see the difference between the smooth finish on this and the painted on finish I got with the black paint. This primer is also well stuck to the plastic, so it's in far less danger of being rubbed off. First up, my approach here was to block in the blue. The natural hair brush made that far neater than the previous model, and being able to better hold the paint in the belly of the brush meant less trips back to the palette too. After that, it was brown to block in the leather pouches, nothing wild here. The exact tone of the brown that you use isn't super important, leather tends to come in different tones anyway. Red was up next, and I just did the eyes at this point. The tip on the brush meant getting the lenses done was easier, and I ended up also mixing a bit of white in to lighten the outer parts of the lenses, and I even managed to add a dot of white to finish them off. then mixed up a lightish grey, which I put on the back of the elbow and knee joints where it's ribbed for her pleasure. I added a bit more black to get a much darker grey for doing the gun, but I ended up going back and darkening the ribbed bits since they felt a bit light. Plan is to wash these in black anyway, but they'd have required a few washes I think, so darker worked better here. With just a little bit of black into a mostly white mix, I edged the dark grey parts on the gun, and then while the white was open, I used that on the Purity Seal parchment. I put some more red on the rosette before the red dried on the palette, and then I used some of the white again to put a dot specular highlight on the corners of the gun parts for that extra shiny look. Then I took some of the brown that was on my palette and I used that for the parchment writing. I cracked out the silver and then I realised there wasn't much on the gun anyway, but I found a few spots here and there to do in that colour. This specific one is Lead Belcher from Citadel, taken from the Stormcast starter set, which I'll be doing a video on at some point soon. Since we were on metallics, I ended up getting the gold out too and sorting out all the parts that required that. This is probably a good opportunity to mention brush control, especially on something like the shoulder pad trim. You'll notice that I move the model about quite a bit, while my paintbrush angle and direction tends to change less. I've got positions where I'm comfortable painting brush strokes, and often you just have to work the model around that. From there I used the black wash, in this case Nuln Oil, to dull the silver areas, and also on a few parts where there were panel lines between armour. I did the same with the brown wash, Agrax Earthshade, on the gold and leather, as well as on the Purity Seal parchment. After that had dried, I went back in with blue to tidy up those areas with shade on panels that I didn't want. And then I started the slightly longer process of edge highlighting the armour in a lighter blue. When that was all done, we were almost there. I popped a bit of silver onto some of the gold areas as an edge highlight and to give them a slightly tarnished look, and that was then promptly washed back with Agrax, and then lastly I used a bit of Nuln Oil to darken the burnt end of the flamer. And that was it. By that time I decided it was done, and the difference, to me anyway, is remarkable. The brush held up really well throughout, the additional colours brought enough interest to the mini that things start to catch your eye, and the primer helped a huge amount for that smooth finish. Now, if you're still looking at these marines and you're thinking, fuck me, there's no chance I'm going to be able to do that, then I respectfully disagree. Compared to most of you, I don't have any particular special equipment, and I've tried to stick to things that people can get if they need to. The question to ask yourself is, what am I doing that's different to what you're doing? If you look at the video and you consider things like brush control, paint consistency, an understanding of where the light is hitting the model, all of these things can be learned very easily with deliberate, intentional practice. Yes, I've been painting for some years now, but that's the only difference. Artistic flair, I think, doesn't come into it. I didn't do anything that would suggest that I have any artistic talent at all anyway, and I've not used anything here that you wouldn't be able to find and use yourself. And what I'm really hoping is that this gives you encouragement. I want you to feel like improving your painting is within reach. If you do decide to pick this set up, I'd love to see how your results turn out. Please jump onto the Discord linked in the description below, and I'd be more than happy to take a look. And if you'd like some feedback, I can do that too. If you'd like me to build and paint the Tyranids part of this set in the same way that I did the Marines, please let me know in the comments. I know Space Marines are a hot topic right now, but if you're a Nids player and you're feeling left out, don't stress. I can do part 2 if required. And that about wraps it up for now. I hope you found this inspiring or useful, or that it's at least provoked some sort of response. Also, if you'd like to see what I'm painting normally with a full range of colours and a range of brushes and free reign on what models to pick, I post that stuff on my Instagram pretty regularly, and the link is in the description below. Anyway, until next time, bye. I went to friendly Edinburgh-based Warhammer and nope. I went to friendly Edinburgh-based Warhammer, nope. The question to ask yourself is, what am I doing that's different to what are you, what am I doing that's different to what are you doing? If you'd like me to build and part? Fuck me. Come here. I'm not even looking at the fucking camera.